Trust in politics is lower than ever. Trust in newspapers? Well, even Wikipedia won't accept many, including the Daily Mail, as a reliable data source. Trust in broadcast is in doubt, and it would be remiss of me not to mention that trust in the BBC is declining. The 2022 Reuters Institute Digital News Report found that trust in BBC News had fallen 20 percentage points over the 5 years from 2018, and distrust in the BBC had grown in that time from just 11% to 26%. But really, is it any wonder that is how people feel after so many controversial decisions by BBC management just in the last year? The handling of the Hugh Edwards affair, the ludicrous and catastrophic suspension of Gary Lineker after referencing a tweet by Suella Braverman. Are you mad? The enormous pension pots, the utter refusal to resign by former BBC Tory chairman Richard Sharp until he was effectively forced to stand down. The list goes on. Politics, arrogance, snobbery leads to disillusionment. They are all inextricably linked. The rich and powerful corrupting politics, the upper middles taking broadcasts for themselves, the increasingly absurd right-wing newspaper headlines being promoted by political programmes. Well, what has this got to do with class? It's got everything, literally everything. After 14 years of austerity and lying by the privileged political class, this country is in an absolute mess, and the television industry must accept part of the responsibility for that too, including the riots. We used to be the message makers, the ones who tried to determine the conversation of the country. And how responsible, I ask you, have we been with those messages? Not very, in many ways. In some cases, some might say reckless. A few examples. The normalising and platforming of Nigel Farage on I'm a Celebrity. Oh, Nigel is just Nigel. Nothing to do with me. What planet is that person on who thinks that? Who next? The Tufton Street mob, opaquely funded right-wing lobbying groups, appearing as so-called independent voices so many times on BBC political shows they've probably got their own dressing rooms. Note, the disgraced BBC chairman, Richard Sharp, had been a director of the right-wing Centre for Policy Studies, address 57 Tufton Street. Just saying. You so often give credibility to those who deserve none at all. And when people feel they have no voice, as disconnected as they do, there is a vacuum. And who floods in to fill the vacuum? The far right. You cannot be an industry with the power to create the conversation and then claim that nothing is your responsibility. The two simply don't add up. Now, I say none of this with malice. I say it all as a woman who has benefited enormously from over 40 years in the television industry. I say it as a workaholic, as a grafter who's played her cards. But 40 years ago, there were cards to play in a manner which might seem impossible today.